Thank you for joining us. Kevin Mill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Up, Adam, raring to go. State Senator Brian Lenney joining us of Nampa. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Kevin. How are you doing?
Well, not bad. You know, I follow your adventures online and your speaking events and your love of the fish in Idaho and your love of the state. And lo and behold, I'm watching TV last night and you're getting smacked by Brian Holmes. But by the again, great to have you on with us, and certainly we'd like to catch up with you. What have you been up to? What's the state of the state and all things conservative in Idaho, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know. Thanks for having me on, by the way. And I didn't know Brian Holmes was going to do a little. I guess they called it. I don't know what hit piece. I guess he might call it news. I'm not sure what he calls his show. I woke up and just saw it this morning because I had a few people email me about it. And it's pretty pathetic. Pretty pathetic guy, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, we can talk about that in a minute. You nailed it. I've been up to spent most of the summer bass fishing and hanging out with the family and doing like normal Idaho stuff, going outdoors, camping, that type of stuff. And since September, we've been ramping up for the next legislative session, which is in January. And we're going to go in there and continue to push, myself and my fellow colleagues in the Idaho Freedom Caucus are going to continue to push conservative policies and to stop liberal policies like the one Brian Holmes was talking about last night, which is, granting illegal aliens amnesty in Idaho.
And we'll get to the thin-skinned Mr. Holmes in a minute, but your thoughts on the court not giving another injunction to the bill protecting Idaho kids. You were intimately involved in that. We talked about that. Obviously, Nampa and Caldwell had their own issues with that, where who would have ever thought, Senator, that it'd be controversial for a boy to go to a boy's restroom?
I mean, we have a problem with our courts in Idaho is kind of the bottom line there. Who would have thought that the Idaho Supreme Court would also be restricting our gun rights in Idaho? We have an issue with that as well. No, I mean, a boy going to a boy's bathroom, girl going to a girl's bathroom. It's a simple bill. It's an Idaho solution to an Idaho problem, as we like to say in the legislature, or as some people like to say. So the bigger problem that we could probably talk about forever is we have a problem with judges and courts in Idaho because, judges have, a lot of people don't know this as well, Kevin. In Idaho, a judge can't be recalled like the governor can or I can or another member of the legislature. Judges have a lot of unfair advantages in elections also, which we really don't have time to get into. So when they get in there, we get stuff like this. It's not, it blows my mind that we're in conservative Idaho that is a Republican trifecta state, meaning we have a we have a Republican in the executive branch. We have control over the House and the Senate, yet we still are battling liberal leftist policies that would make more sense in a place like California, the place, I escaped from.
You're right. And, sometimes people use that against you. Now, again, before we get to Mr. Holmes and, the illegals and Congressman Simpson, you were a proud speaker at our friend Greg Pruitt's Second Amendment Alliance rally. You had a chance to speak. I caught a little of your video. For people that missed it, why is it important to have a rally to promote the Second Amendment? We're in Idaho. We love guns, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, gosh, we have people, for people who are brand new, obviously we had a huge wave of people move here during the fake pandemic when Governor Brad Little locked down the Idaho economy and deemed businesses essential and non-essential. People thought they were escaping, West Coast blue hellholes and coming to Idaho to live in a conservative place, and then they come here and find that actually no, we're facing a lot of the same battles. Are we more conservative than a place like Colorado or Oregon or Washington? Of course, but are we truly red conservative? Not really. The people of Idaho are. The people moving here mostly are, I would say. But yeah, we're still having we're still having to battle Second Amendment stuff. We're still having to battle abortion stuff. We're still having to battle should we be allowed to let children or let parents mutilate their children in the name of the transgender cult. So we're still having these same battles. The thing here is we have liberal Republicans. People like to use the term rhinos. We have liberal and moderate Republicans pushing this stuff. So it's a never-ending battle. And I mean, if people don't understand that this is a fight to preserve, our nation and our state and our way of life, they don't really know what time it is.
Well, which brings us to the report from Channel 7, where I watched it because, unlike you, Senator, I don't have a life. So on one hand, you have the report talking about how the industry is suffering because you've got the illegals working for it. Then you've got the Dairymen's Association gentlemen saying 90% of the workforce is foreign-born. Then you have the workers who don't speak English but do accept American money and live in America. They can't speak English, talking about how much it stinks to work there. And then we had people translating for them. And yet we didn't have anybody speaking up for the people when we had Mr. Holmes call you out because you said, look, you put it in your own words. Mr. Holmes was very mad that you didn't come on his show.
Yeah, I mean, he was very emotional. Very emotional. He seemed almost agitated, like maybe I don't know. It's kind of interesting to watch. I've never seen someone get so riled up about a tweet. He was attacking me because of a tweet. Look, I'm not going to go on his show because I have better things to do, like, watch paint dry or, look at the sky, things like that. But what he did is he attacked me because I have a conservative view on illegal immigration, on amnesty, on these types of things. Because what he tried to do and what opponents of people who are pushing amnesty for illegal immigration and open borders and all that stuff, like he was last night, they try to make it about. It's a bait and switch, Kevin. Because what they do is they insinuate without any basis, first of all, that the federal government or that the state government has an obligation to provide, a foreign replacement workforce for the ag industry in Idaho, and they don't. And when they're pushing these policies saying, let's open the borders, let's bring more people, let's give them driver's licenses, let's grant them amnesty, all it does is invite invasion. It displaces American workers and it deflates wages up and down the entire industry. Now people say, well, Americans won't do these jobs. Well, yeah, if you're paying an illegal workforce slave wages, of course Americans aren't going to do those jobs because you're paying an illegal workforce, slave wages. So this isn't about guest workers for the dairy industry. This is about importing a replacement workforce, Kevin, and it's a obviously, so this used to be a traditional conservative view, and now it's suddenly some extremist view. Yeah. This is a massive security breach that makes the current crisis at the border worse. I was just talking with the Nampa police last week. We went down there and did a little workshop. We have a massive fentanyl problem right now. We have a massive sex and human trafficking problem right now. And guys like Brian Holmes saying we should bring more illegal labor into Idaho, they're just making that problem at the border worse.
Well, and Mr. Holmes not really covering the issues. Can you hang on for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. More coming up with Senator Lenney. And we're going to talk about the push by Mike Simpson and others and Channel 7 to bring in the illegals and make them legal. And yes, you can still say illegal alien in America. State Senator Brian Lenney joining us. Kevin Mill in the morning, Senator. So let me just break this down for people, and I'm not leading the witness, but it was odd. So again, we had the pro-agribusiness. We feel sorry for people because they have the illegals here. We have the workers that can't speak English, but they can take the money and the working conditions stink. And then we have you being called out because you refused to come on a television show. And again, I thought it was a remarkable moment in television. And again, you hunt and fish, I watch TV. But Mr. Holmes, seemed very angry, actually going to the Webster's dictionary to try and, correct you for using the term illegal alien. And then like continuing on, going after your career, which you're very successful at, and then questioning whether or not you've been to a dairy farm. I go, that's quite a lot for your response about putting illegal aliens in quotations. It just, well, what do you think? What's your reaction?
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I know Holmes has been invited on other shows and podcasts before, and he refused to go on. For instance, like the Wayne Hoffman of the Freedom Foundation has a podcast. Holmes won't go on his podcast. So that's kind of funny coming from him. I don't know if he had a lot of like a soy-based drink that, before his show that got him all emotional. I wasn't really sure what happened there, but yeah, I mean, he attacked me for being a direct response marketer. What does that have to do with being with illegal aliens? He what else did he do? I just watched it this morning when I was waking up. He said using the term illegal aliens, that specific term, he called it a racist dog whistle, which is just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's a common term used by even CNN and other news places and things like that. The president has used that term before. Joe Biden, the fake president, has used that term before as well. I think what's more racist than using the term illegal aliens is exploiting an entire group of people with low wages and using slave labor to build a business. I think that's more racist than a term. I think making hasty generalizations like Brian Holmes did last night about all white people in Idaho, that seems pretty racist to me. So I think it was a lot of projection on his part.
Yeah, he seemed very angry and lecturing us on your bad behavior. I don't mean to keep bringing that up, but I was like, damn, this is good television. But I mean, you're probably fishing and hanging out, and he's just raving about you.
Yeah, I mean, I do go fishing all the time. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, it's Brian Lenney. Find me on Facebook. You'll see a lot of pictures. I have other things to do than go on his show.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of the things he said, so I did tell Holmes when he emailed me, he said, hey, do you want to come on the show? I actually didn't say I wouldn't come on the show. I didn't even know he was having the show. I didn't find out about this until this morning. I didn't say I wouldn't come on the show. I just said, hey, I'd rather have you just send me some questions by email and you can read my answers on air. He refused to do it. So, because he knows I would have actual answers and he would be required to read them instead of try to get me in some kind of gotcha. But he said the questions he did want to ask me on his show, which again, I don't know why he couldn't ask me via email, were, did I talk to an actual Idaho farmer or rancher before making a tweet? Well, Evan, I didn't know I had to talk to an Idaho rancher or farmer for making it before I tweet something, about farming, that was ridiculous. Kevin, I grew up on dairy farms. My friends' parents were all dairy farmers. I grew up, that's where I lived in Southern California. It's tons of dairy farms. I also grew up around, avocado farms, walnut farms. Southern California, California is the largest ag state in the country. That's where I grew up. Brian Holmes should know this. He's a California transplant as well. But, I've lived in Nampa for 13 years now. So I thought it was funny that he said I had to ask a farmer before I tweet something.
Yeah.
And, even growing up, Kevin, in an ag state like California, the largest ag state in the country, I grew up on the dairy farms. Even though I did that, I still think flooding America with an illegal foreign replacement workforce is bad for the country. It's bad for Idaho. It's a huge security breach. So we could sit here for hours and talk about this. He asked about what kind of background I had in ag to make such a statement.
Right. I'm with you, but it goes to a broader question. So you have Mike Simpson on, you have, and it's odd, then you have a farmer on that he's not proud of what he's doing. So we don't know who the farmer is. I don't know if he's a real farmer. He could be a fake farmer. And then
they blurred out his face. Yeah.
Right. And then we have the illegal who doesn't speak English. Maybe she's legal and doesn't speak English. I don't know. But the greater question of what Congressman Simpson is trying to push with this, making the workers that are here illegally, rewarding them by giving them citizenship, what's at stake?
Kevin, what's at stake is the literal sovereign integrity of our nation and our state. we have, for people, if you're listening to this show right now and you're brand new to Idaho, you need to know this. We have a problem in Idaho, in the state house and in our congressional representation, with liberal, moderate Republicans pushing what used to be Democrat policies. And when you're pushing amnesty, like Congressman Simpson, and a lot of people don't like to hear this, Kevin, but I'm more interested in saying what's true instead of what people like to hear. And I know Congressman Fulcher is on your show a lot as well. One of the first things he did when he got voted into Congress is vote for this as well. People don't like to hear that. I don't have any kind of personal issues or problem with Russ or anything, but he also voted for it. So what's at stake is like I said, it's the sovereign integrity of our nation, because all of these things we have someone in Southeast Idaho every year tries to get driver's licenses for illegal aliens. All this does is incentivize further waves of migrants at the border. Now, I've said this on your show, and I believe this, and I've said this all over the place. If I was in Mexico, I sure as hell would be trying to come here every day, any way I can, hopping the fence, swimming over the river, whatever. I don't blame people in Mexico for wanting to live here. America's a great place. If it was a bad, racist, evil place, why are they in such a hurry to get here? I don't blame the people. I blame, for the crisis that we're seeing, I blame the politicians who are pushing these things and incentivizing illegal behavior. Because that's what it does. We have our border is a mess. And instead of incentivizing further waves of migrants at the border, Congress and politicians in Idaho should be working on reducing the flow of illegal entry of persons. That's sex trafficking, weapon trafficking, drug trafficking, and fentanyl. Fentanyl is killing people all over the state of Idaho. And guest worker reform isn't going to fix this. They say it's about guest worker reform. It's not. They don't want guest workers. The dairy industry wants year-round. And they said this. Brian Holmes said this in his little rant last night. They want year-round, low-cost foreign laborers. That's what they want. That's not a guest worker, Kevin. That's called importing a workforce. Not conservative. It's not good for Idaho, and I'll fight against it every single chance I get.
Well, and again, you have Congressman Simpson being the quarterback here, and let's call him out. It's Senator Guthrie that does this every 2 years or whatever, and then we had Congressman Simpson rushing to his aid after Guthrie took the heat. And by the way, if it hadn't been for you and the conservatives, the Freedom Caucus and others, it came very close to being a reality this time.
Yeah, it died on the House side of things. We had the debate on the floor. And Mike Simpson is the quarterback. So a lot of these more moderate, liberal-leaning Republicans started a new group this year called the Main Street Caucus. Sounds very cool, right? The Main Street Caucus. But they're actually pushing things that are more Hay Street, Wall Street. They're pushing things that are not Main Street Idaho. Most Idahoans don't want illegal immigration and amnesty. Yet Mike Simpson is the captain of this. They had him on their podcast, and I think you nailed it. He's the quarterback, and all these other people just fall in line and play ball. But I mean, we do have the Idaho Freedom Caucus, and people don't, for people who don't know what that is, caucus is just a fancy word. That's just our tribe. It's the true conservatives who realize the stakes on illegal immigration and all these other issues that we're facing. And we're going in there and we're fighting on the Senate floor, on the House floor, in the committees. We're fighting for actual, real conservative policies. And wouldn't you know it, most of the time, it's not the Democrats who are putting up most of the opposition. Most of the time, the people we're fighting against are the liberal Republicans. Well,
and, not to delve too much in your past life, tell us what happens when the illegals run wild and free, as they've done in California, and, can drive and now get in-state tuition thanks to the governor.
You said illegals. That sounds kind of racist to me, but I'll just answer your question anyway. Kidding, of course.
Right.
And Holmes should know this. Brian Holmes is a California transplant. As much as he pretends he's not, he is. Imagine a lifeboat. The Titanic's going down. The Titanic is our country. The lifeboat is Idaho. You can only fit so many people in a lifeboat. It has nothing to do with race. You only have so much money. You only have so many services. I mean, growing up, if you want to go to the hospital in Southern California, where I'm originally from, it's a several-hour wait, and they're just inundated with illegal immigrants. It's just true. It's not racist or anything. Healthcare, the grocery store, gangs, drugs, traffic, you name it. Any service that the state provides, it's just a drain on the system. So, imagine a lifeboat that only fits 10 people in it safely and securely. Well, California is trying to put 100 people in that lifeboat, and that's why we see California just sinking farther and farther and farther. So I'm just saying, hey, man, we have a lifeboat. We can only fit so many people and provide services for so many people. If someone comes here the legal, proper way, yes, of course, let's do that. Although personally, Kevin, this is another unpopular opinion. I think we should halt legal immigration as well until we secure our borders and get our house in order. But that's another topic for another show. But California is completely overrun. They can't keep up with it. Hospitals, like I said, schools is a huge problem. You have whole classrooms who don't speak English in an American state in California. So I would like to not overrun Idaho. I would like Idaho to stay Idaho. I would like Idaho to be able to be sufficient and provide for Idaho workers, not for, like I said, a workforce from another country.
Well, and we've seen this, and I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Peter Brimlow. He wrote a book years ago called Alien Nation and these enclaves. And we're seeing that not only in Idaho, but across the country. They're getting more and more where you go into some place and it's not America. They don't speak the language, and you have some issues, and that's a danger. And then let's talk about an issue, Senator, that you brought up that every major media outlet is ignoring in the state. I don't know if they're afraid, but the fentanyl threat. You've got the police chief of Caldwell talking all the time about the cartels are running things. You've got Sheriff Donahue warning about the cartels, and nobody's covering this. Nobody's really saying anything about it, but we want to make sure we bring in the illegals to work legally. Makes no sense.
All of this. So again, I said earlier on the earlier segment, I met with Chief Huff, and I got Chief Huff is the police chief in Nampa. He's doing a great job. Nampa PD is doing a great job at combating fentanyl. But we went down to the police station and met with the detectives, a lot of the police doing the undercover work and things like that. And I invited a handful of other legislators. We had like 20, 30 people in the room. And all of this fentanyl is being made in Mexico and shipped up here. Maybe not all of it, but 90+%. It's a problem that happens in Mexico. It's built. They're made in the labs in Mexico. We saw proof of that. And it's being shipped across Joe Biden's open border, and it's being distributed to our young people, mostly young people in Idaho. Fentanyl is a major, major, major problem. And that happens when we have an open border and people are flooding. All these things just compile on each other, right? So let's open our border and invite amnesty. And by the way, I know we didn't mention it on this show specifically, Kevin, but earlier this year in the legislative session, we had, like you said, Senator Jim Guthrie and Senate leadership and a lot of the, I think we had, 25 senators vote for this and only 10 were against it or something like that. They were pushing a bill to say, hey, we want amnesty for illegal immigrants, and all they have to do is pay an appropriate fine and they can stay. So these liberal Republicans pushing it. Of course, the Democrats want it. I'm not faulting them. They're Democrats. That's what you should expect from a Democrat. So no problem there. That's what Democrats do. But when you have Republicans pushing amnesty for illegal immigrants, it's a problem because this bill said they have to pay a fine. Somebody looked into it and said, well, what kind of fine would they have to pay? And what I heard, I didn't verify it, but what I heard is someone looked into it and said it would be a $50 fine. So if you're here illegally and you get caught, you just pay $50 and you get to stay forever. But they're saying that's not amnesty. I would disagree, Kevin, with that big time.
Senator Lenney, we appreciate you, and thank you for joining us, and keep up the great work, and please keep us updated. By the way, if people want to follow you on Twitter, what can they do?
I only have one account on there, one real account. I believe it's Brian_Lenney, Lenney, on Twitter. So yeah, and I don't know, Kevin, if you guys typically do this or not, but if your station wants to send Brian Holmes a box of Kleenex, that might be appropriate as well.
We'll get on that. Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Senator Lenney.